So reflect for a minute or so on why you have attachment for friends and relations, and if that is really justified if you look at the situation clearly. And also see how that attachment is based on how they relate to you. That if those same people treated other people, with the same attachment, with the same kindness that they treat you, would you still be attached to them? If they treated the people you didn't like with kindness, would you still be attached to them? So see how this discrimination of sentient beings who are more worthy of happiness than others comes strictly from our own self perspective, our own self-preoccupied mind. And then do the same thing for people that you don't get along with, how you label them bad, negative, and corrupt, or whatever labels you give to them, and you put them in a box of, totally unworthwhile and even deserving of suffering, not happiness. And reflect how that is also coming from, holding so tightly to your own ideas, your own opinions, how, a lot of the dislike we have for somebody is because how they relate to us, but they do have friends, and they're nice to their friends, and they're loving to other people. So just because they aren't loving and kind to us doesn't mean that from their side they're awful people. So again, see how this relationship comes about because we're seeing people through the perspective of I, me, my, and mine. And they're not inherently good or bad or worthy of happiness or worthy of misery. And then think of the strangers, and again, how we feel rather apathetic towards them because they don't influence us one way or another. So again, here too, our feeling towards them is based on how they relate to me. And we confuse that with who they are and what kind of human being they are, and the complex human being. But instead, we just put them into the category of almost like inanimate objects that we have to work our way around to get what we want. And so how that way of judging people and feeling, not caring what happens to them, also is based on our own self-preoccupation. And then remember that all of these beings want happiness and want suffering, and their wish for happiness and not suffering is equally as strong in every single one of them. And getting it, in touch with your own wish for happiness and not misery, that they have that same wish, then have a feeling of concern for them and compassion for them and wishing them well. And then on that base, cultivate bodhicitta, wanting to attain full awakening, so you can help to liberate each and every one of those beings from samsara. Then open your eyes and come out of your meditation. Ding. This meditation really makes you think, huh? Especially when you get into sometimes, well, why do I dislike that person? And what you realize is it's because I'm jealous of them. I actually admire their good qualities, but I want that status and I want those qualities and I want that renown, and they can't have it. Yeah. So because I'm not getting what they have, then I make them something bad, who's worthy of my antipathy, who, they do nothing good in their life. I mean, they're a whole complicated sentient being with many different aspects to their character and their history, but because we're jealous, we reduce them to a stereotype, where we have an idea of this is who they are, and we don't like it because they're better than me, or they have what I don't, or, I'm too lazy to work to get that, and I think I should have entitled it. I am entitled to it, but they got it without having to work for it, or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's quite interesting to really look at the reasons we give for feeling close to some people and feeling antipathy for others. It tells us a lot about ourselves and how we look at other people, yeah, and how we situate ourselves with other people. And it's also very interesting in doing that to look at how we have this idea of my space. Yeah, this is my space. This is my territory. This is my room. This is my office. These are my shoes. This is where I like to sit. This is my cushion. This is, how I should, just on very basic things in our life. Yeah, this is my piece of toast. And, how we then, when somebody else, yeah, takes our piece of toast by accident from the toaster, yeah, or they're in our space without asking permission, or sit in our chair, or use our cushion, or, and, they took my pen and didn't ask me permission. How we get so wigged out about this stuff, because, this is mine. And what is mine is very important, and it's not yours. And you should know, the whole world should know, this is mine, it is not yours. Yeah. Didn't you learn that at 2 years old? That was what you learn in the terrible twos. Yeah, just ask any parent. Terrible twos. What does your kid scream? They scream a lot when they're 2 years old. And what do they scream about? This is mine. Yeah. You have my happy hedgehog. You have my Buddha bear. This is mine. Yeah. And then we grow up as adults and, we're doing the same thing. Just different objects that we call mine. But the mind that's holding that and seeing anybody who threatens it, as a danger to our very existence. If I'm not sitting on my meditation cushion, how can I meditate? How we get into these frenzies about these kinds of things, And this is my idea, and nobody's listening to my idea. Or they listen to it and then they claim it's their idea and they don't give credit to me when it's my idea. Okay, so when they don't like the idea, I don't like them because it's my idea. When they do like my idea, but they take credit for it, and then again, I don't like them. Yeah. Okay, who's the nutty one around here? Yeah. And how we're so caught up in seeing everything through me, I, my, and mine, that we're just completely like looking at the world, through one of these, what do you call it, like a, yeah, well, like a kaleidoscope, or like these fences where everything's, like that, and you're trying to see something and you can't. Yeah. And that's how we wind up being. Okay, so let's continue here. Okay. So in verse 89, Shantideva said, having in such ways as these thought about the excellences of solitude, and remember, solitude means solitude from the 8 worldly concerns, seclusion from attachment to the happiness of only this life. It doesn't mean, finding a cave where we have nobody around who we don't like and everything we want when we want it. That's not solitude. I should completely pacify, so when you have this solitude in your mind, I should completely pacify distorted conceptions and meditate on bodhicitta. And then, first of all, I should make an effort to meditate upon the equality between self and others. I should protect all beings as I do myself, because we are all equal in wanting pleasure and not wanting pain. So that's a summary of the whole meditation on equalizing self and others. Okay, so first of all, I should make an effort. In other words, we can't just sit back and think the understanding is going to come to us. I should make an effort to meditate upon the equality between self and others. So the equality between self and others is not like what is supposedly guaranteed to us in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, or all these other documents. Yeah, it's because what it's talking to in those documents is about everybody being equal in having certain rights. Yeah. As we know, the people who wrote that up, it was a wonderful idea, but they actually restricted those rights to a group that includes me, I, my, and mine, who people who were exactly like them. Okay, white, Christian, landed, wealthy men. Okay, and so all those were created equal and had equal rights. But if you were poor, if you were a woman, if you were of a different race, um, then forget it. Yeah. So we're not talking about that. The ideal that's enshrined in our documents is wonderful. And I think, I don't know about you, but as a child, I really took those to heart. And I didn't have the ifs, ands, and buts attached to them of race, religion, and gender, and so on. I just thought, wow, regarding all people, that's really a far out idea. And, uh, and I think that many people in the country see things like that. In terms of civil rights, in terms of getting what I want, when I want it, no, we are not all equal. Yeah, yeah. Yes, we should all have the right to vote. Yeah, but you do not really have the right to have a different opinion than I do. Because if you do, you're on that side, and you are, evil. I mean, this is the way some people are structuring the argument that we saw in the Michael Flynn thing, that this is between good and evil. Things are not so simple. Yeah, they're not so simple as good and evil. And again, we like things that are simple because we don't like complexity. We want to know, this is my friend forever. That's it. Okay. This is my enemy forever. Don't have to think about them anymore. This is what I like forever. This is what I don't like, what I approve of, what I disapprove of. Yeah. And it makes our life, we think, more simpler. But trying to simplify everything like that actually makes our life more difficult, because reality does not match our conceptions of this false kind of simplicity. Yeah. Just to give you one idea, some years ago, a young man from a different Buddhist tradition came to talk to me, and he was asking a lot of questions. And I forget what question he asked, but, my reply was, well, this Buddhist tradition looks at it this way, and this Buddhist tradition looks at it this way, and this one looks, they have different ways to view the answer to your question. And his reply to me was, well, which one is right? And I said, well, it depends upon what assumptions you have, and how you're looking at the issue. Because you can't say, that one is objectively right. It depends on many other factors. And so it is through so much in our life. We're always looking for, something goes wrong, and we're looking for one person to blame. Yeah. Situations do not go wrong because of one person. Yeah. We might say, oh, World War II all happened because of Hitler, or it all happened because they gave away Czechoslovakia, or, just one thing. But no, there's so many things going on. Yeah. So many people involved. Yeah. That we can't just narrow things down to one simple answer. Yeah? And this leaves us in this state of, we feel very uncomfortable with that. Yeah, if you look in your mind, it's like, just give me one right answer. And that's what he asked me. And I said, he said, give me the one right answer. I said, I can't do it. Yeah. And so, broadening our mind to encompass. I mean, this is what dependent arising is about. You know, if we want one simple answer to things, but we say, oh, I'm meditating on dependent arising, then I don't know what kind of dependent arising you're meditating on, you know, because when you really look deeply at something, there are so many things going on that we can't narrow it to one thing. You know? So the trick here is to manage our own discomfort, our own discomfort with living in a complicated world with complicated people. Yeah. We say, you know, so-and-so is such an angry person, as if they were always and only angry. But in some situations, I'm sure they're quite kind and quite generous. Yeah. But our mind doesn't give them that space because we've put them in one category. Yeah. I was very surprised after my mom died, and, you know, we had a reception for all the people after the funeral, and all these people came to the house. And listening to what people said about my mom, you know, and they had a totally different view of my mom than I did. I thought, oh, that's interesting, you know. She had this whole other side. You know, she didn't, yes, she was a mom towards her kids, but she wasn't a mom towards everybody else in the world. You know, she related to them in different ways. And so they saw her in many, many different ways that I didn't see her, because I only saw her like this, you know. So it's quite interesting to see that and try and enlarge our view of people. Okay, so let's get into these 9 points from Chichen Rinpoche. Chichen Rinpoche, by the way, was the junior tutor to His Holiness Dalai Lama. And he passed away in 1981. I think it was. I was in Dharamsala at the time. And wow, everybody was coming down the hill to pay their respects before he died and after he died. It was a very big moment. He's, you know, his incarnation was born to a Tibetan family who lived outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And he's now living somewhere in New England. And he's not very much in touch with the Gelu tradition now, because he was actually put in quite a difficult position. In the previous Chichen Rinpoche, the one who gave these points, was a practitioner of Jukten, that spirit that His Holiness asked people not to practice. And His Holiness, when he saw problems with that practice, explained to Chichen Rinpoche why he wasn't practicing it anymore and why he thought it wasn't good for the Tibetan community. And Chichen Rinpoche accepted that, and, you know, there was no breach in guru-disciple relationship at all. But the whole issue got very political in the Tibetan society. And so then the young reincarnation, he's just a little kid, but he was raised by the people who were doing that practice. And so then he was in this, I mean, a very difficult position, you know, because I think he respected His Holiness. And yet, you know, the people he lived with were for this. And, you know, so I think as a result, that's one of the reasons we don't hear so much about him these days. Yeah. Now I'm really getting off on a tangent, but the Dilku system is a very complicated thing. It's it's something that exists only in the Tibetan tradition. There's no tradition of this in the sutras or anything, in early Buddhist history. It's something that the Tibetans began. It began with the Karmapa. I forget which century, maybe 14th, 15th, something around there. And then this whole process of identifying the children who were the rebirths of certain very high lamas. But I've watched, because one of my teachers was a Rinpoche, and then, after he passed away, this child was identified, and I know the child quite well. I stayed at their house many times. But the position they're put in as little kids is very difficult, because all the adults look at them as, oh, you're a highly realized being. And, uh, it's very strange. One time when I lived in Singapore, the incarnation of Lama Yeshe, the Spanish child, Osel, came to visit Gloria, who was taking care of him. She was a nun taking care of him, came with him. And I lived at this old folks' home, and it was a temple and an old folks' home. I lived in the, and so we were instructed, to have like a reception and let all the people come. And so here he is. He was maybe, how old was he at the time? Maybe 3. Yeah, maybe 3. And so he's sitting up in front, and then all these people come up, and it's like, oh, look, he moved his hand. Oh, look, he smiled. I mean, this kid's sitting there just being a kid, and all these people are like, oh, he looked at me. Maybe that means I'm special. So they're just kids, but they're put in this, the adults put them in this, what do you call the cookers? Pressure cookers, And it is no fun. Because even if, if you're identified as a Rinpoche, you're just walking down the street. All these people come up, they want a hand blessing, where the monks touch you on their hand. And, you're just walking down the street. You want to be left alone. You cannot be anonymous. Yeah. And it really is quite draining, and people having so much expectation of you. So, yeah, that was that tangent, which I could go on for a really long time, but I'm not. I'm going to come back, and we're going to look at this teaching, okay, which already is a tangent from, no, it's not a tangent. It's a deeper exploration of the verses here. Okay, so in these 9 points, yeah, there's 3 groups of them. So 2 groups are based on conventional truth, and 1 group is based on ultimate truth, looking at people in the ultimate way. So the reasons based on the conventional truth, the first 3 of those are the reasons from the viewpoint of others. And then the second group of reasons based on the conventional truth are 3 reasons from the perspective of oneself. And then there's 3 reasons from the viewpoint of based on the ultimate truth. Okay, from that viewpoint. So we have 3 groups of 3. Yeah, 3 groups of 3. Okay, so the first one, the reasons based on conventional truth. So there's 3 reasons from the viewpoint of others. So I'll tell you what they are and then go back and explain them. Okay. So the first one is everyone wants happiness and to avoid suffering equally. Second is it's not suitable to give to some beggars and not to others, but we should wish to benefit everybody equally. And third, it's not suitable to treat some patients, some sick or injured people, and not others, but it's more suitable to remove the suffering from everybody equally. Okay, so back to the first viewpoint, the first reason there. Everyone wants happiness and to avoid suffering equally. Yeah, anybody can refute that? Anybody can give some reason to refute that? Come on, I'm sure you can. You've been doing it your whole life. Yeah. Why do you think, that some people don't want happiness, and so it's not suitable to give them happiness? Okay, so some people act in ways that bring them suffering. Yeah? So why should I work for their happiness? Yeah, they aren't working for their own happiness. Why should I work for it? Yeah. What else? Uh-huh.
They're my enemy.
Yeah. Why are they your enemy?
They don't agree with my views, or they're mean to me, or many things.
Yeah. They don't agree.
They're not nice to me.
Yeah, they're not nice to me. They don't agree with me. Yeah, they interfere with my happiness. They put the spatula in the wrong place. Yeah? I asked them to vacuum, to clean up one area, and they said no. Ah. Yeah, they're narcos. Yeah, they're killing and stealing. They're destroying the fabric of society. They're making many families suffer. So they don't deserve happiness.
I want them all in jail.
Yeah, we want them in jail. We want them to suffer. Yeah, it makes me really sad when I hear these, like some with the Parkland parents, when the jury decided not to give them the death penalty, some of the people were so upset, like he killed our children, why should he live? We want him dead, as if that would alleviate their own pain, which it doesn't. Yeah. So that we have that kind of thought sometimes. Yeah. You want who to run for president? Well, I'm a Buddhist and I love everybody, but it would be nice if he got hit by a truck before he, for the benefit of all. This is just, we have to acknowledge these thoughts in ourselves. If we don't acknowledge them, they're still there and they're affecting how we act, and we have to acknowledge, as embarrassing as it sometimes is, to see where our mind gets hung up. If we don't acknowledge it, these thoughts influence. Yeah? And basically what they do is they make us hypocrites. Yeah. And the thing with karma is the way the law of karma works, it doesn't tolerate hypocrites. Yeah, you cannot pull the wool over the eyes of the law of karma. Yeah, if we have a rotten motivation, even everybody agrees with us. Yeah, if we act on that, it's going to be negative karma. Doesn't matter how many people agree with us. Okay, so To just sit and ponder that. Think of one of those narcos. Yeah. This is somebody, usually they're young men, right? Yeah. And often they're from poor families, right? Okay. So you're a young man from a poor family. Yeah. Your image of what you're supposed to grow up to be is you're supposed to be able to support a family. But you don't have much education. You're not from a wealthy family. Yeah. It's difficult for you to get a job that pays. But your friend is dealing drugs, and he eats really well. And he's your friend, and he's offering to introduce you to his friends. You can join their group, and and join in the community business. I mean, the people the narcos, if many of these people have very acute business skills. It's where they're using them that we object to. But it's not like in that way they're dumb people. If they had the chance to work in another business rather than the drug business, they might be very successful businessmen and wind up with a corner office. But they're impoverished, they don't have the education. Yeah, they don't see any examples from their family in the neighborhood they live in of people who have done otherwise. And it's a livelihood. And your friends are there, and you want to be with your friends.
Sometimes we think it's like an easy way to get the job, like their values are not into putting effort on things.
Think about it. Do you think dealing drugs is an easy job? You have to be on the outlook for the cops all the time. You're looking here, you're looking there. You have to price your product, at a reasonable price, not too much, not too little. Stay with the market price. You have to make sure your customers pay you on time. Yeah, if you give them credit, you sometimes have to go and ask for the money. Yeah, you have to make sure that the people who who give you the product, the distributors above you, that they're honest, that they aren't charging you too much. Yeah, it's like regular business. It's not because it's easy. Yeah. I don't think it's so easy, and you have enemies everywhere. And you have to protect yourself from all these enemies. And sometimes your co-business people turn out to be your enemy because they cheat you, or you get a little bit too uppity and you cheat them, and and then you lose your life, you lose your career. So it's not a safe profession. It's not an easy profession. I wouldn't want to do it. It's not just hanging out on the street corner, with a plastic bag full of white stuff. It's not that. I mean, you have to keep accounts. Mm-hmm. So, so society looks at it, they're just lazy, they don't care about anything. I think if they had different role models and different opportunities in society, they would act differently. And who knows, if we had grown up, in the conditions that they've grown up in, we may be acting in the same way. Yeah. But it's very interesting. If you are a business person who wears a suit and tie, and stands in a corner office instead of on a street corner, different corners, you know, then you are, society looks at you differently. But you see some of the people who cheat people, like with the recession in '08, a lot of that was due to, all sorts of funny things going on with, I don't understand all this selling prime things. Who understands what? Yeah, but all this hanky-panky going on in the banking industry, the financial industry, that led to many people, uh, that banks closing down with forfeit, so people had to forfeit their houses, people became homeless. I mean, they harmed so many people. Yeah. Do they get arrested like the people selling a bag of white powder on the street corner? No. Yeah. So what, why? Why? Yeah. It's because these people, whatever qualities we assume, oh, well, they're educated, so they must be honest. That is, this is when you talked about the debating qualities, okay? So when you learn to debate, you learn about pervasions, okay? So here, if somebody is educated, therefore they must be honest. Okay, is that true? It's not true at all. Do many people believe it anyway? Do we believe it sometimes? Yes. Is it correct? No. Okay, there's no pervasion that if somebody is educated, then they are also honest. And you can make many examples of people like that. Okay, so, this is when we ask, why things happen in one way or another, and when we look at our own thoughts, then we see that many of these very illogical ways of thinking exist in us. Yeah. So, and I think this is one of them. Somebody is poor, therefore they don't deserve wealth. Yeah, because there's another. Okay, so that's one statement we have to look at. Is there pervasion there? But that one is based on, if they're poor, it's their own fault. Okay, is there pervasion there? That everybody who's poor, it's because it's their own fault? Can you make some examples of people who are poor, but it's not their own doing? Yeah. Children that grow up in those families. Yeah. They're poor, but it's not their own doing. Okay. And even they become adults. Yeah. You still grew up in poverty. You can't get out of that mentality and that situation just by having a bigger body. Yeah. It's very interesting if you read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. She lived in the South Side of Chicago. If you know anything about the South Side of Chicago, you don't want to walk around there. Okay, it's in general, I mean, there's different pockets in the South Side, but in general, it's quite dangerous there. She grew up in the South Side of Chicago. Her family was together, and her family, wanted the best for her, and her father had a job. But they were living in this really poor community, and she went to a school that was, in poor communities, you usually have poor schools, because the government doesn't give the money to the schools that need them. Okay. Why, how did she get to Harvard and become a lawyer? When something happened, I forget what it was in the school, they changed something, who was going to what school or how the curriculum or something. Her mother went into the school and said, I want my daughter to go to this school or be in this classroom. And her mother took charge and transferred Michelle to another place where Michelle could blossom, because she was obviously an intelligent kid. Yeah. So one change in circumstance gave her this whole different life that she would never, ever have dreamed about going, with her classmates when she was in kindergarten and first grade. There's no possibility then. Yeah. So, these conceptions that we have, that if somebody is poor, it's their own fault. Yeah, that's not right. Yeah, and if they're, what was the one I said before that? If they're poor, they don't, they don't deserve help. Yeah, because it's their own fault, because they're lazy. Yeah, yeah. If they're poor, they don't deserve help because they're lazy. Yeah. But then you see all I mean, we believe that. Our funny mind believes that. Oh, if you're poor, it's because you're lazy. Yeah. But if you look at some of these drug dealers who are poor, they're not lazy. I mean, they're out there working. Yeah. For a business that's harmful. But I don't know between them and the people who were behind the recession who was more harmful. So, yeah, just the way we're thinking, it's, they don't matter. Why? Why? They're human beings with feelings. Everybody is a human being with feelings. We need to listen, and see what we can do to help. I sent around a few days ago that thing about restorative justice, and I sent around the URL for watching Kim Montes, his name, Carter, to watch his statement at a conference. Did anybody watch that? Yeah, it was quite something, wasn't it? He's very articulate, and he explained this. He was arrested for murder and imprisoned, but he's explaining the background that he came up in, and why he was the way he was, and how society is just perpetuating this. One thing I really saw when by working with inmates is that how much the school system is involved with producing criminals, not because the teachers are bad, but because they don't get enough funding. And the kids, the funding does not go to playgrounds. The funding does not go to childcare or to textbooks even, or to the equipment you need to teach a child and really encourage them. Yeah. And some of even the buildings that the schools are in some neighborhoods are terrible. Yeah. And so it's not because the teachers are bad, but it's, society is not helping these kids a priority. It's like tossing, they're born like that, so we don't expect much for them, so why give a lot of money for their education? And so that's why they talk about the pipeline from school to prison. And it is indeed a pipeline. If you read, read Chris Wilson's book, The Master Plan. Yeah, read that one. What's the other one I read recently that you brought me? I've read a few of the ones. Read Jarvis Masters. He's written a couple of books. Read those. And then a new one's come out that a journalist did about Jarvis named something, okay? But, we have these books in our library, and read them, and it opens your eyes about, how people grow up. And I remember one of the guys I was working with from Michigan, he was locked up as a teenager for robbery. And I'm quite direct with the guys I work with, and I want to know, why are you in prison? Some people say you never ask them, about what they did. I ask, because if I'm going to help them, I need that kind of information. So anyway, so he was telling me he had, a few younger siblings, and he said, and he was arrested for robbery. And he said, if you open the refrigerator and all you find is a box of baking soda and you have younger siblings, what choice do you have? Yeah. So it's a real situation for some people. We had one young woman come here for one of our young adult weeks very early on, maybe the first, second, third one we had many years ago. And she was telling us that her parents were very much into drugs, and there were many kids in her family. And one day walking to school, the kids found a $20 bill. And they went back home. They were so excited because they had a $20 bill. Maybe now they could get food. So they went back home. They gave the $20 to their parents, went off to school, came home and thought, oh, mom and dad will have spent the money on some food. Well, no, mom and dad spent it on drugs. Yeah. I think, wow, you grow up in that kind of family where you lose trust in your parents wanting to take care of you. Yeah. And what does that do to you as a kid? Where you're anticipating food. You're not anticipating a Christmas stocking full of, all sorts of expensive gadgets. You're just wanting some food. And instead, they've spent it on drugs. And she was a remarkable kid, actually. She made sure she got an education and she was working. But, you just think about that. And it's, yeah. So to look at our conceptions about why we think some people deserve happiness and other people don't. Okay. Now, the second and third reasons are giving more specific indications of that, but we're out of time. But maybe you have some questions.
I just wanted to share that in my previous job, when I was looking at why Central Americans were leaving their country to come to the U.S., well, the narcos have sort of infiltrated their society. Whole towns are run by narcos, but they also provide a lot of services to the people. They provide clean water, they provide like after-school activities, soccer fields. So it's not clear that they're bad people, and they do have mixed motives. They care about their community, but at the same time, they also want to make some money, and they don't care who gets hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not clear at all who's good and who's bad.
Yeah. And they're doing the job that the government should be doing in those countries. Yeah. It's really true. In many ways, they're quite generous.
I've thought about that before, like as far as being families that are successful, that whatever that means, you know, but that produce children that have the drive to, you know, excel at you know, business or, but it's all about, you know, kind of the foundation, like you say, from when you're a child, you know, if you're brought up, you know, and there's just no talk about, you know, college or, you know, you don't get the right push, the right, you know, to, so.
Yeah. And we grow up in very different families. Yeah. In my family, I knew before I went to kindergarten that I was going to college. I thought college was just a mandatory thing straight through, that you didn't have a choice. You know, that was pounded into me. So, of course, I went to college because there was no choice. I never thought of doing anything else. But if you're raised in a family, yeah, where that is not a priority, or where maybe your parents were immigrants, your parents were impoverished, and they didn't have that kind of education, or your parents were brought up during a war, so they enlisted in the army before they could, you know, finish their education or whatever, and then it influences how you grow up as a child, having a parent like that. Yeah. So we don't start off karmically or societally or economically on the same field. And we come in with our own karma to be born in certain communities, to be born in certain families. And even within that, we have our own tendencies, things that we're very much habituated to and told that we should be. And we are, or we like to be. So, you know, we're all created equal. You know, I mean, that's saying that there's a creator, but even if you believe in a creator, you know, created equal doesn't mean we're really created equal. We're created very diverse, and we should have equal rights in the society. Yeah. But we often don't even have that. Yeah. If you're impoverished and you can't afford a lawyer, yeah, doesn't matter, you're innocent or guilty or whatever, yeah, you're going to prison. If you have a lot of wealth and hire lawyers, then you just keep appealing and appealing and appealing, and you never go to prison. Okay, so to look at how we judge people in ways that are not fair, where there is no pervasion.